Hey guys, this is Case coming in before the episode. Just to note that there is a bit of content that you can't help talking about this movie without giving some kind of a disclaimer. There is some transphobia here, there is some gay panic, there is some racism, and there is some talk of sexual assault. So if that is a concern, I would probably recommend skipping this episode.
All sarcasm aside, I adore this movie. I love its madness. I love how it's like reading it's like this weird cross between reading Hunter S. Thompson's like early 70s work with of course, you know, Russ Meyer's amazing cinema de memoire.
Welcome to Certain POVs, Another Pass podcast with Case and Sam, where we take another look at movies that we find fascinating but flawed. Let's see how we could have fixed them.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Another Pass podcast. I'm Case Aiken, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Sam Alisea.
Hi!
And today we are talking about a movie that definitely is fascinating, but flawed.
My brain is melted from this. It's melted. It is goo. Go on.
Well, it could have been worse. It could have been worse because we both actually had the wrong thing written down initially, and I caught it right before I rented it. So today we are talking about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and for that conversation, we are joined by my former coworker at Crow's Nest, a bartender extraordinaire, but more importantly, actually a comedian and a successful writer, and currently appearing in an off-Broadway show. We are joined by Sean Lynch.
Hello.
Yay. Welcome, Sean.
I want to change that to my resume now. Bartender.
Saturday night bartender at karaoke night at Crow's Nest.
You got to lead with that, kid.
You know, Crow's Nest has had as much of an impact as just about any job I've had because it was you, it was Batista, like lots of like good connections happened at that bar.
I was literally doing a show in San Francisco 3 months ago, and Eugene Koppman showed up with his wife, kid, and that's all we did was talking about Crow's Nest all night. It's amazing. It was the nexus of like so many people's lives in the late aughties.
Man. Yeah. So for listeners who forget the mythology of Case. So I used to live in New York, used to be a bartender while doing theater stuff. While bartending, one of the places I worked for a number of years was this Upper East Side dive bar. Dive bar's a harsh term. It was a very nice bar.
Dive
but
bar
it was
is pretty apt, buddy.
Well, because the Second Avenue subway construction was going on, so there was always scaffolding right in front of it. So you could never really see out from it, even though it was actually a very clean establishment, and I know because I cleaned that shit. But Sean was a working comedian at the time and would do guest bartending regularly on Saturday nights, and we got to know each other pretty well. I think we dropped a Greek mythology reference, and that was the first time we really connected.
Oh, yeah.
I forget, it was something literate, but I don't recall what.
That's shocking. You building a relationship off of that? No, listeners, are you as shocked as I am? Yes, they are. Shocking.
We had three of the most erudite bartenders in Manhattan working together. It was you, me, and Eugene were pretty interesting barmen. You know, you would think, you know, usually at a place like that, it'd be three guys named Patty, who I'd never had more than a third grade education, and I'd come over on a potato, you know, and the three of us would be the interesting thing about Lady Macbeth. Wait, sorry, I have to get a pint for some vomiting frat boy, and we just go right back to talking about Richard Burton or something. It was fun.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. That was really where I identified myself as being the philosopher bartender. People would come in and I would be Plato would explain it this way. Right. But I want to give a shout out actually to past guest Will Carey, who had you on his show. When I reached out to you to say, hey, it was a great episode, that's when we got talking and ended up inviting you on for this one because we hadn't talked in probably 6 years.
Had to be.
But so wonderful to have you on.
Oh, thank you.
When we asked, you immediately said Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. And I was like, that sounds interesting. Sam, what do you think? And Sam said,
yeah, sure. I've never seen that movie, which was not an understatement. I don't know if this is a movie or a fever dream, but it is something. It is an event. It is a moment. It is So many things. I'm going to have to speak to my therapist about it. Definitely.
It just permanently imprints on your cerebral cortex. Like,
listen, I don't even know what my pitch is going to be because I actually, when I was done with this, when I was done watching the movie, I had like a couple of other things that I had to take care of. And so it was a few hours in between. And I decided to call a friend. And I wanted to explain to them the plot of this film to see if I really understood what I had seen. And they were like, what? Why? And I'm like, wait, no, it's not done yet. Hold on a second. They're like, no more. And I'm like, no, it's not. I have to finish it.
But I haven't gotten to Superwoman yet.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I gave everybody nicknames so that they would know. Like, I was like, so manager boyfriend, who's not really her boyfriend, but he thinks he's her boyfriend. Anyway, manager boyfriend is so upset that he was like told that he's a terrible lay, and he gets mad and he goes in and he throws a whole punch, but he's terrible at fighting, probably as bad as he is at screwing. Anyway, and my friend's like, oh my God, please stop.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, the movie actually has a fairly straightforward, like, base plot. If you really break it down, it's the arc of every one of these, like, biopics about a band comes to LA. Like, they start making it big, but then the drugs and the alcohol and everything starts, and all the partying, and they mix it up with the wrong crowd and whatnot. But that wrong crowd is so weird, like, from start to finish.
You mean beautiful.
Also beautiful. Like, there's a lot that if I was watching this movie when I was 14, I would have, had to take it back just to appreciate the beauty of. Like, there's a lot of good stuff going on here.
Oh yeah, dude! I saw it while I was in film school at NYU, and I remember watching it, and everybody else in class was just tearing it apart, and I was like, "You Philistines! This is the greatest cinematic experience of all time. This is like Fellini's 8.5," and everybody's like, "He's definitely on drugs. This dude is definitely on all the drugs. He's finally snapped." And I was like, no, because all sarcasm aside, I adore this movie. I love its madness. I love how it's like reading it's like this weird cross between reading Hunter S. Thompson's like early 70s work with of course Russ Meyer's amazing Cinema de Memory. And what a great, loud, boisterous way to capture like the both beauty and ugliness of the 60s, early 70s. I mean, man.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start off with just literally the first thing that they put on screen here, just in terms of conversation, which I found so fucking funny, both because I was reading up about it before we hit play, and then it actually came on, and I was like, oh my God, it's real, which is a disclaimer that this is not a sequel to The Valley of the Dolls.
Please do not sue us.
Well, and that didn't stop it, because they actually did get sued.
Oh,
because,
that's amazing.
I
love the idea that if the intro was like, please do not sue us. No, sir, please sit down. Please, sir, stop calling that lawyer.
Yeah, so the author of the book, Valley of the Dolls, Jacqueline Susan, tried to get an injunction to prevent this movie from being released because she thought it was sullying her work. And it's bad enough that, at least in terms of the Valley of the Dolls, the previous movie, that this movie was greenlit as a sequel to. Let's be clear about that part. The Valley of the Dolls was commercially successful because it kind of had this cult status. Like, there's some performances in there that are, shall we say, over the top. And people responded and took it like it was everything is played so straight that it was taken as humorous in a lot of ways. And then you get Sharon Tate, who actually died between Valley of the Dolls and this being released, that kind of inspired the third act of this movie.
Yeah.
So you've got like all this sort of like lore.
Let's not forget Ronnie Spector inspiring Superwoman.
Yes, that's also a part of it.
I mean, like, there's a theory. I believe it's Ronnie Spector that character was based on.
I saw a note about it, but I don't know what the sources on this one are. Like, certainly it fills an archetype the same way like the Boxer character is like a Muhammad Ali type character without necessarily being like, 1-to-1. Like, there's not like specifically events that I think they're referencing. It just Wouldn't this type of person do this type of thing?
Right. But
Fuck
I think Muhammad Ali actually wore a shirt a lot more often.
Yeah. This guy has a shirt like maybe one scene in the entire movie. No,
This
not
man
even.
He
actually
comes in
has
no
some
shirt.
Sort of weird, he has like a cotton allergy or something. It's just weird.
Yeah, he shows up without a shirt at the party.
But no, when he shows up to her door later on to be all like creepy and weird, he's wearing a yellow jacket at the very least with flowers.
That's how
Because
you know.
I remember myself going, oh, he's actually wearing something on top, because I was so shocked that like he ditched the towel that like, and like he like showed up at like to basically be upset that he'd been thrown into prison. And then like he basically like threw the law student across the room and was like, take me back, baby. And she was like, no. And that was like kind of the end of it, which was weird.
Yeah.
And
they sentenced me to this shirt.
Yeah, they made me wear a shirt. It's part of my probation. Headcanon. That is.
You're right. He is wearing a jacket when he shows up again.
See, yeah, but you're right. For the rest of it, he is not. And I remember thinking the whole time, like, damn, I guess it's LA. I guess it's warm, so I guess he doesn't need one.
And I just love the idea that in like some sort of like feminist movement, they're like, well, if we have to take our tops off all the time, why can't at least one of the men take their tops off all the time? He's like, Russ Meyer's like, she's right, you know. You there, the boxer. Lose the shirt, kid.
More skin. More skin for everyone.
He just has a towel. That way you know he's a boxer.
Right. Right. Or either that or Mean Joe Green. But yeah, it makes sense. I love the idea that they're like, he doesn't look enough like a boxer. Put a towel around his neck. Woo, nice.
Have him make a million boxing references.
Oh my God, yes. I mean, I love how ham-fisted all the characters are. I mean, we could do an entire episode on Z-Man. He's amazing.
Yeah, every character's fucking incredible in this whole piece. Like they're all crazy. Not a lot of them had careers after this movie.
What?
The ones that did were mostly because they were like all the women are playmates,
right.
like across the board.
Listen, I can tell you what Lance Rock was up to afterwards, at least for the first 10 years after this, because I followed him.
Cynthia Myers, speaking of which, who is the sort of like the third girl in the band, Casey, the lesbian, because they all have like their one thing. So she actually. So she's got like all this stuff going because she was the first Playboy Playmate born in the 50s because they shot her shit immediately in time for her to be legal. And apparently photos of her were sent on the Apollo 12 mission. The candles
weren't even blown out on the cake yet.
Not so much so that they shot it before she was legal. They released it after the date.
Good God.
Wow.
Yeah. But apparently her photos were sent on the Apollo 12 mission. I know, it's
for good measure.
Yeah.
Go with
this is a wild movie. So Russ Myers is mostly known for like nudie pictures and was given a bigger budget than anything he'd ever worked on. And so he hired a young film critic, Roger Ebert, to write this script.
Amazing.
And I don't know if we've mentioned that part yet because holy fucking shit, this is Roger Ebert's movie.
Yeah.
This was his foray into cinema.
This is his first feature.
I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing that I'm like, you know what? If I wrote that and the movie turned out that way, I'd retire from writing too, because that literally just take your bow, man. This was it. This was your stairway to heaven. Time to go home.
Just a crazy thing. I mean, when this movie started, so this movie starts with this like weird opening sequence of basically the finale, but with the credits playing over it. So you can't really see the faces and you can't really see some of the details that are going on. It's like, that's a hell of an action sequence to open a movie on with the credits still playing over it. And then it sets up actually one of the things that I really liked about this movie, which is the smash cuts between scenes are really interesting. So there is a gun and it looks like the trigger is about to be pulled and there's a scream, and that scream corresponds directly into our main girl band singing. And it's a really nice cut right there. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. At this point, they're called the Kelly Affair. Later on, they're going to be called the Carrie Nations, but it's the main girl band. And we sort of set up the dynamic of this like 3-girl thing with their manager, which I have a note, which is like, was this supposed to be a Josie and the Pussycats movie? Because it's like exactly that dynamic.
It kind of feels
perfect.
that way.
Yeah. Or was Josie and the Pussycats based on this movie? Because
now the comics came first, although Melody wasn't black until they got to this, which I think it was a 70s cartoon when they made Melody black. So, or introduced Melody, and there was a different character who was a redhead. You know, it's one of those scenarios of like, what's the minority in this group?
Right. Who knew Hanna-Barbera was so woke? That's amazing.
Well, and there's like an extra thing going on here because the actress who plays Ashley St. Ives, the porn star character, has real Parker Posey energy. And Parker Posey's in the Josie and the Pussycats movie.
When you say energy, do you mean cocaine?
Something like that, possibly. I don't want to like Parker Posey is just an amazing character actor, so I don't want to like necessarily put anything on her. But everyone on this shoot definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there's a point where you're like, boy, this is some really like coke fueled acting, and then you're like, oh, this might actually be meth fueled. Like the energy level. It's like Russ Meyer just kept standing behind the camera going, more, yell more.
There's a line early in the movie where one of the characters says, I guess liquor is kind of square. And I was like, oh, that's the kind of vibe we're going for here. That like the drunks are too boring.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go out and run a crosstown bus. Come see the magic people. Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, so yeah. So the music. So yeah, it's technically a musical. I fucking love it.
For me, the music is the best part of this movie.
Oh, yeah. The strawberry alarm clock? Are you kidding me? How did they do that? How did Russ Meyer pull that off?
Like, all the songs are really good. I mean, they're definitely of the era. Like, you know, like, if you're tuning in, this is definitely going to be, like, of that time. But the voice, like, just everything about the songs, they're catchy. They sound good. You're like, yeah, I can see people really digging this band. Like, yeah, I'm going to go watch these girls like sing and play songs.
Yeah. They would have been popular. Like a real band like that would have been popular at that time. That look and that sound. I mean, you do get the feeling that some care was put into that end of the film.
Yeah. And seriously, like, because there's a lot of things in here that are kind of like, we're going to make this really heightened kind of insane thing that's not quite serious, but totally serious, but not quite serious. But the music is very, very like whoever did it was just like, I'm going to do this with so much care until about the second half of the film. And then they started putting Scooby-Doo themes inside moments where they did not belong. It just made me feel wrong and weirded out. And I get it, but
well, it also
it was very jarring for me.
It also, when it starts to get into like some weird like Midnight Cowboy vibes, like between Lance Rock and Z-Man, like with the costumes and all, I was like, is it me or did like because when you think about when this movie was shot, it was probably shot about maybe a year or so after Schlesinger made Midnight Cowboy. Because this was what year? What year did this come out?
This came out in 1970.
Yeah, and so a year before Schlesinger made Midnight Cowboy, because that scene where Z-Man and Lance Rock are having their, I don't know, BDSM costume kind of tete-a-tete that sort of folds into murder. I was just so reminded of that scene in Midnight Cowboy where John, God, I can't play Angelina Jolie's dad, John Voight, is on his knees, and that guy and that crazy man standing above him being like, it doesn't have to be work, Joe. It doesn't have to be work, boy. And I remember just thinking, hey, are they stealing? Are they borrowing?
They're playing. It's an homage. It's an homage at that point.
And then they have another disclaimer. Dear John Schlesinger, please don't sue us from that scene.
Please don't sue us. Don't sue us. All of this is ideas from other places pasted together to make one fever dream of a movie. Please don't sue us.
Dear John Schlesinger, Strawberry Alarm Clock, Muhammad Ali. It's got a list of everybody. Like it just keeps showing name after name of people that they're begging not to sue them across the screen. It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of makes sense because the movie was a very small budget. Like the official budget was $900,000. It was probably closer to $2 million, but and then the like after release and everything, it's $4 million. And then it actually was so this movie technically was a success. It grossed $9 million at the box office.
All right.
So technically technically did its job. But it was a micro budget. And apparently they wrote all the scenes for existing sets that were available at the Fox backlot. So
that they just snuck onto.
I mean, they got approval for it, but yeah, basically it was just like, okay, here's cool vista for us to shoot at here. Oh, did you guys notice how like everything is shot day for night?
Yes.
Yeah.
In it, and it's like aggressive. Like there's like big shadows where you're like there's no light source that would be doing that, and any sort of night shot like throughout. Like there's one shot where like they're on the beach. It's when Harris is like failing to get it up with absolutely
being
knives.
Suffocated. That's why. Like the whole time I was watching that like scene, I was like, I am so uncomfortable for him. Like, take a hit, lady. Take a walk. Like,
right. There was definitely.
But the point is the giant glare of sun that is just on the ocean, right past it.
Oh yeah.
And it's a night shot.
Right. They've tinted it just a little bit to try to make it a night shot. No, that scene made me. I couldn't notice it because I was uncomfortable for other reasons. Yeah. I was just like, oh God, he can't breathe. I can't breathe.
I know. I remember just thinking, boy, I hope that guy who looks exactly like Greg Brady wears a condom because holy good God.
One of my favorite things about that was that like at some point he was like, can't we just use a bed? Because like the thing is that she's like always like asking him to do it because he invites her in the first time that they have sex and she's like, no, I want to do it in the car. And like so every time,
to be fair, it's a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
Yes. And
true.
she's very happy about that. But like everywhere they do it, they have to do it somewhere that is not traditional. And he's just like, I just want a bed. Like,
children use this trampoline. Shut up, big boy.
Exactly.
Pass the Astroglide. Oh, good Lord. No, Greg Brady, stop.
Yeah. So, oh God. Yeah. And man, I don't even know where to go with this movie because it jumps all over the place and it's so weird. Yeah, man.
But it crescendos. Okay. It's like just when you think like it can't get any weirder, they stack that deck.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they set it up at the beginning where it's just like someone's going to be running around in a Nazi outfit being chased by someone with a sword at some point.
And you're like,
credits are rolling. You don't know what's going on. And eventually you get there. And you're like, oh, that's how this plays out.
That looks like
lots of drugs.
Our friend Z-Man is at it again.
Yeah. I was very jarred when I saw the Nazi uniform. I was like, nope, do not like that. Not at all. Was I relieved when he died? Of course I was. But
well, because they like confirmed that he was an actual Nazi at various points.
Yes.
And also when the lesbian character gets dressed up like Robin, I'm like, that's another disclaimer. Dear Bob Kane, please don't sue us for having reference to one. Like all of the, like at least Superwoman, you're like, oh, okay, I can see where you're going to get away with not being sued for Superwoman because that's just kind of a DC and like infraction.
I don't even know if there was a major character that was Superwoman at that point because like Lois Lane and Lana Lang had taken the name at various points, but like Supergirl is the main character.
Yeah,
for that.
It was
like,
clever.
Yeah.
It was not even, or instead of saying Tarzan, they said Jungle Lad. I was like right up, but that Robin outfit, there was no. We're talking 4 years after William Dozier's Batman series. I mean, it is very obvious that woman is wearing a Robin costume. I'm like, how did CBS?
Now I'm wondering.
I don't know if there was an insignia. I think that's how they got away with it because it's just like the red. It's just like the color scheme, like in the right places, but I don't think there was an R on it. And then,
but
like,
I would not be surprised if those are the actual suits because it was 20th Century Fox that produced that TV show.
Oh, there you go.
And like who I called the Ice Queen, in my feedback, she was wearing like all black and she kind of had points. So I think it was like a little bit Batman, like a little.
Yeah, that's true. That one
bit.
didn't really look like the costume from the show, but yeah, the Robin suit, and they call her Boy Wonder.
Oh,
and there's
that's
no point. Like,
yeah,
that's right. Oh man, yeah, they must have had some kind of sweetheart deal. It must have been some kind of in-studio deal where they were like, yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, although this is a point I have to reiterate about Batman in the time, which is that prior to the 66 Batman show, no one fucking cared about Batman. Like, Batman was not a big successful property. Like, it was a comic that didn't get canceled in the golden age to like going into the 50s.
Right.
But like It's not Superman. Superman was actually the big success, and it was actually the Adam West show that started to change that whole vibe, and like really in our modern pop culture sort of influence on it all. It's the Dark Knight Returns going right into the Tim Burton movie that like made Batman a big commercial property.
I agree. I mean, and why not? I mean, I'd follow anything Adam West did ever. I was actually quite shocked that Adam West didn't show up in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. He would have been perfect.
He would have fit in.
He would have been
well.
a better Porter Hall than Porter Hall.
Oh, yeah. Although I got to say, the Porter Hall's like the actor who played Porter Hall is named Duncan MacLeod. And just because of this show's association with Highlander, I need to call that part out.
He had to murder 3 other actors who looked exactly like him to get the power to play Porter Hall.
Well, there can only be one Porter Hall. So
how great would it be is when Z-Man has that sword, like out of nowhere, Porter Hall just pulls a sword from it.
I mean, the worst part is he's beheaded, guys. Like, we are burying the lead.
Oh, right.
He is beheaded.
I know.
So that makes Z-Man the Highlander.
That's true. And he absorbed Lance Rock's sexiness. Or you think so. I mean, although I will say, like nowadays, like Z-Man would have fit in so perfectly with HBO's Euphoria. Like he wouldn't have, you know, it's a weird thing because I look at it now and I'm like, oh no, like Z-Man would have been huge.
He was huge then. He still would be huge. Like honestly, the villainous turn of Z-Man at the end of this movie, and all the other things that we'll talk about eventually about Z-Man at the end of this movie.
We will never get to it. We're going to go round in circles like forever. Go on.
This movie is a fever dream. Sam, you were completely right. It is so hard to talk about this movie because like I still want to talk about things about the opening like disclaimer because there's shit to talk about still there.
I do want to say I will give credit. That was my friend Elena who said it. So just in case she listens, I want her to know she gets credit. Elena was right. Go on.
But I will say Z-Man up until we get to the finale is pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
First of all,
awesome parties.
I felt very
drugs.
betrayed by Z-Man becoming a predator in this because I loved Z-Man up until that point. I loved him. I wanted to protect him. To me, he was a Shakespearean cinnamon roll, okay?
Right.
Like, yeah. Did he have lavish parties with lots of drugs in it? Yes. But he didn't even mind that random people were having sex everywhere he walked, even while he was giving tours. He was just like, pardon me, don't let me interrupt, keep going. Yeah. So polite. Z-Man was so polite.
In his bedroom, in his master bedroom, people were having sex in, and he was like, no, it's okay. I just want to show her the plants. Like, keep at what you're doing.
And listen, I love plants, and I approve of people who raise plants. So it was a huge betrayal once he became a predator.
Yeah. That's why people like, how would you best describe Z-Man? I'm like, he's the sort of person who could actually play a harpsichord with his own penis while putting on a cravat, if that makes any sense.
After seeing this movie, it does.
He's literally like Dionysus.
Yes, actually that is perfect. Like this sort of bacchanalia kind of thing. Like these are very old tropes. Like the idea that fame is like this corrupting influence. And like that's the theme of Valley of the Dolls too. Like this one is meant to be somewhat satirical, whether it's satirical because they started working on it and realized that between, you know, Ebert being a neophyte and Myers being a
predator.
Well, I was gonna say a pornographer, but I'm not trying to cast aspirations on that or aspersions on that. Like, I just want to note that like it's a B movie director.
I actually love that Freudian slip.
I do have a porn treatment that if anyone ever wants, it's called The Paradox with 3 X's and it involves time travel.
Of course you do. But you know what? We should say for anyone who hasn't watched this, we're talking about how insane this movie is, but it does have a lot of not like sex, guys, but like basically implied sex, like soft core, like corn kind of moments, bodies mashing together, that kind of stuff. But by the end of the movie, you're so desensitized by it because it's all over the place. Like,
here it is, boobs again.
Right.
Oh, and here they are, they're getting it on. It's like a really bad smut fiction on AO3. Like, it was like someone's like, and then they had sex. And then she felt bad that her friends had a fight, and then she had sex. Like, that's basically what this movie is.
Yeah. I mean, from the start of not from the opening, like, credits roll or the party scene, but like they go into like as soon as like they leave like the party where they're performing, Kelly and Harris like start getting it on, and it just smash cuts to them doing beat poetry while getting like shots of LA, which include shots of literally people having sex. So like it's there. I watched the trailer for this, and I do not know where they aired this trailer because there's so many tits in it. I'm like, wait, was this in theaters? This is definitely not for TV.
It was actually put on right before Bambi, and like
I couldn't figure it out because it definitely was not a modern trailer. It definitely wasn't someone who like made it for Amazon, which is what I watched this on. It was definitely like a at the time trailer. I mean, maybe a couple years later, but it was still like of the era. And it's a fever dream too, because it's all the smash cuts or not the smash cuts, like the erratic rapid cutting of some of these sequences.
I know the exact trailer you're talking about, and it is one of my favorites. It is one of my favorite trailers of all time because it captures the mood and the insanity of that movie. But
lots of actual boob.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, you want to know what you're getting into. You know, I mean, it definitely doesn't gild the lily at all. It's like you know what you're getting into when you see there's going to be lots of 60s movies, lots of smash cuts, lots of boobs, lots of acting for the rafters. It's you know, it's got everything.
Yeah, it's amazing that this is going to drop right after our episode on the Magical Mystery Tour, which is also a 60s like fever dream of a movie, but like a very different one. Technically, this one has more of a plot.
I actually feel really sorry for any of our listeners who decide to watch the movies. I'm so sorry. That's 2 back-to-back that is going to make your brain feel like, ow.
Right.
I don't know if you are a fan of the classic Lucy and the Sky with Diamonds. I think you'll be a fan of both of these movies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially if you were born in the 70s and you just have sort of a natural nostalgia for that sort of cinema. I mean, I know I do. Anything from the late 60s, early 70s, I automatically have like a nostalgia fixation on, because I remember those clothes. I remember that music. I remember, you know, being of that time. So it's like, you know, I'm turning 50 this year. And it's crazy to me that like people watch it. Like, did anybody really dress like that? I'm like, yeah, my parents dressed like that, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, I have some thoughts about that. I think it is accurate to an extent, but I think that the screenplay by Ebert, I have a hypothesis that this is. I imagine that Roger Ebert is not cool or was not cool.
I know where you're going, man.
I have this hypothesis that the extravagant, crazy parties that he's describing is his imagination of the shit that he's heard and trying to exaggerate. well, kind of, yeah. And like probably Myers was at all these parties, so there's a certain element of like, well, but no, you know, like it's going to be reined in from being too crazy and out there and fake. But really, because like I think about a lot of the times when I try to write like either a romantic scene or a sex scene or a party scene when I was in high school, and I was not cool. I'm not trying to pretend that I was like, and it's kind of like that where nothing is technically wrong, but the way it's all jammed together and pushed just a little too far. Like, yeah, there would be times you might end up walking in on someone having sex in a room, but it wouldn't just necessarily be like, oh, you're just parading around through it. And maybe one time they don't care that you walk in, but like it just, this is the status quo. Like all the things that are like the like crazy stories that he heard probably got like amped up to an 11 and also were treated as just passé.
I'd like to amend that. And I agree with you. Completely. Your theory is, I completely agree. I really do think it was him alone eating Cheetos in his studio apartment in Los Angeles being like, this is what the beautiful people were up to. they're bad. You know, I agree. But I also will say, I thought it was over the top when I was, this all happened within the same year. I saw the movie, laughed about how over the top it was, but that same year, this is like my sophomore year of college, I went to one of Michael Alleg's parties at the Limelight, and I don't know whether it's a chicken and egg theory here, but that bacchanal that we saw at Z-Man's place, That was happening in the basement of the Limelight in 1994. Make no mistake. Maybe Michael Halleck had seen that movie and it was a favorite of his. It would have made sense. Michael Halleck loved camp. But that Disco 2000 party that he was having for years at the Limelight was the exact Bacchanal. And I'm talking as a kid from Salem, Massachusetts, like, who'd been living in New York City for 2 years. I go into one of those basement parties that he had there, and there's a gladiator having sex with someone in a chicken costume. There's people on roller skates that are coked out of their minds that are fighting with swords. I mean, it was all there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say that this shit couldn't have happened. I'm just saying it's probably.
I'm saying it happened in the movie, and a young Michael Halleck said, "No, we're going to make this reality."
Entirely probable. If you read up on shit like how The Godfather influenced how the actual mob would operate, or how Animal House influenced how fraternities behaved.
Absolutely.
Like the amount, toga parties became a big thing because of Animal House, not the other way around. So there is certainly art imitating life and life imitating art going on here.
Sure.
I'm sure all of these types of things were like, oh yeah, I heard these stories, these type of things occurred, this type of thing occurred. And it's all being mushed together and then presented between, this nebbish fellow's interpretation of it, and then amped up to 11 by Meyer's artistic eye. Probably some of the probably there's a bit more nudity because they're like, oh, we can get boobs in here. Cool. Let's get the boobs in here.
Well, I mean, if you're hiring Russ Myers, I mean, come on, man. You know what you're getting into.
Yeah. I want to talk about two production things before we go too far into the fever dream of this movie.
Okay.
What are you talking about? We've basically
I know.
We are in the midst of the fever dream. I don't know what you're saying. The fever is at 103. We should be checking into a hospital, okay? I don't know. You keep saying before we get into it, Case, we're in this.
No,
okay?
I know.
Z-Man has spiked your drink, all right, bro? That's not alcohol you're in.
Let the philodendrous tendrils of your mind get yourself into it, Case. Tonight is our bacchanal, and we are but together.
Okay, sorry. So the two things I did want to bring up. So one, going back to the whole Valley of the Dolls, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls connection that existed but then didn't because of legal reasons. So apparently the Aunt Susan character was supposed to be one of the main characters from Valley of the Dolls. And because of the lawsuits and whatnot, they rewrote and recast the part because it was going to be Barbara Parkins reprising her role. Which is interesting because Aunt Susan is my favorite character from the standpoint of oh no, she's just good. She's just she's successful in her job. And when a person who never gives any proof that they're related shows up, she's like, oh, I'm totally cool with giving you $350,000. No questions asked, everything is fine. She seems competent. She at no point seems the worst thing that happens is because the guy, Baxter, is engaged to someone else and shows up, but they're long lost loves and they reconnect immediately, that she goes for it without having any sort of concern about the other person, which is, not really her responsibility. It's more Baxter being kind of shitty at that moment.
That was a weird kind of C story in there that I was
that's the thing. That's a callback to Valley of the Dolls. That is a reference to how the movie ends, where it's he proposed and it wasn't the right time.
Wow.
So that's why that was in there. And when it's rewritten, it's just all right, cool. And it's kind of a fun trivia note, and would have been really fun if it was the original actors, but I like them. They're cool. I like them just fine. I love that he shows up as this Brooks Brothers straight lace suit, and then later on he's still wearing jackets and whatnot, but the colors have changed into being more vibrant.
The actor who played, wasn't that Charles Napier who played Baxter in that, who would later go on to he was in Silence of the Lambs and a couple of other great films in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, good call on that one.
Yeah, it's weird.
I just had a note that he looks like the dad from Beethoven. Which now I'm wondering.
Charles Grodin?
He looks like it at this point in the movie.
I love that that's your note. Looks like dad from Beethoven? Question mark.
He fucking does. I didn't think he was. It's 30 years off. I didn't think it was right.
A young Charles Napier would look like a middle-aged Charles Grodin. That's I mean, good on you. Yes. I know, I love that. That's what's funny is whenever I get into conversations with like other filmmakers or other writers and directors, and we start talking about the movie, and people who've never seen the movie get so weirded out that not only do we know the names of all the actors in it, but we also know like who the producers were, who the directors were. And the third party always looks at the first party like, what's wrong with these people?
I gotta admit, I watched this movie twice, last night and then today. And when I was turning it on for the second time, my dad called me, and I was like, "Hey, we're just turning on Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. We have to watch it for the podcast." And he starts cracking up, and my mom was like in the room and could hear it, and they were like, "That's the Russ Meyer one," and I'm like, "Haha, yeah, that's exactly right. Did Roger Ebert write that?" I'm like, "Yep, you know a lot about this movie, Dad."
It was probably like a secret. A lot of people, I think, a lot more people saw that movie than people let on at the time.
Yeah, well, he was a senior in high school when this movie came out.
Then it must have been an event.
Target demo.
It must have been like the Rocky Horror Picture Show of 1970. Which actually,
I mean, it kind of was. Yeah, like big cult film.
God, that would.
But on that note, the other thing I wanted to bring up, that production-wise, so this movie was shot to be an R. It got an X, but it was shot to be an R. And Meyer apparently shot a second version of this movie for an X. But after they got the X, he couldn't go back and reinsert the scenes because the studio rushed it out. So out there in the world, but probably no actual version that anyone could ever find, because it's never
somewhere
been released.
In a vault right next to Jerry Lewis's "The Day the Clown Cried." There's the Russ Meyer's extra boobalicious.
Right, there is a more pornographic version of this movie.
Oh my God. Well, it's something to look forward to, I guess. I don't that's going on the bucket list, Case.
So I have a note that I write a bunch of times when I was watching this movie, both the first time and the second, which is Harris is a fuckhead.
Yeah, total tool.
I fucking hate that guy. This is the band manager guy.
Yeah, no, I know who Harris is. I just like calling him the manager, not boyfriend.
I always called him Greg Brady.
Yeah,
you know what? Greg Brady's a better person. So poor Greg Brady.
He is.
At least Greg Brady can sing. I mean, you know, he started the Silver Platters. Come on, man.
I mean, Harris is just a glorified groupie now. Well, you didn't make yourself useful, mother trucker.
I mean, he really was like he was just like a skin flap. There was no purpose to Harris. I mean, yeah, he wasn't a bad guy, but like what was the real use of him?
Circle back on that one, because I am not convinced that he's not a bad guy. Almost everything that happens to him is his own fucking fault. Like, he seems dissatisfied with being there always. Is not trying to participate, is not thrilled for any of the success of his theoretical friend or whatnot. And I think some of this is the scenes are really fast, and like time does not make sense in this movie. Weeks go by, everyone's still wearing the same clothes at the same party. I don't, like there's a lot of stuff going on here. But he's kind of just a shitty person to everyone. He tries to pick a fight, gets his ass whooped, and that like is kind of a part of it all. Like, he rapes a girl at one point. I mean, he's also fucked up, but like they call it, they call it that. And then he tries to commit suicide, and everyone like puts all their affection on him because he tried to commit suicide and is paralyzed. And then like at the end of the movie, when like their friends are dead, they're like, Harris, your legs are back. Yay. It's so great. It's a miracle. Like,
it's like you hadn't
fuck
raped
this guy. Yeah, exactly. Like, fuck this guy.
Honestly, like, I think that this is that through line is one of my least favorite things, like Harris in general. But the fact that the script itself, and we're going to blame Ebert for this, wants his redemption. And like, in fact, when my least favorite part of this movie, where they start expounding the moral lessons of the film, which is fucking awful. I'm gonna say it, guys. I fucking hate it.
It was like watching like a bad like corporate movie, being like, your friends at GM know morals are what make America smile.
Well, like, and it's such a weird thing, right? Because you've got, and I get it, right? Like, it's sort of making fun of the debauchery, but then it just comes off so like you know what? It makes it so that Case's theory of not cool Ebert sitting in his room complaining a real thing. Like, well, you know, if they hadn't done those terrible things, they would be fine.
Right.
And that's why at the end, everyone has to get married. You're welcome. Live a good life. And it feels like really fucking preachy, and I hate it. But one of the things that I really hated is at the very end, when they're doing the moral stuff, they're talking about our lovely porn star, and they're like, she toyed with men and she didn't care, and she didn't care about their feelings. And they show like Harris, and I'm like, who the fuck cares about his feelings? No, she's fine. She told him exactly what she wanted, and he was just like, I don't want to have sex on the beach. I want to have sex in a bed. Okay, fine. You're not what I'm looking for. And then he started and went and picked a fight. He's the worst. He's Ted Mosby.
Yeah.
He's the nice guy who thinks he's the nice guy, but he's not really a nice guy.
Oh yeah, he was the proto incel or proto cuck. I don't know. That's
Like, honestly,
Right. Everyone's having a good time, so he gets mad.
right.
honestly, like, he like, I mean, okay, this is going to come off terrible, guys. I do not support suicide or anyone jumping, but honestly, like, how fucking selfish it is of him to make sure to try to commit suicide while the girls are on TV in front of their live audience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I hadn't
on
thought about that.
purpose.
That is kind of a dick move.
Like,
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that, like, Harris should have died. I'm not saying that he should have committed suicide. I would never say that.
I'm just saying it's better television if he did.
Honestly, it'd be a
That's
better
so
script
dark.
if he did.
That's like the homage to Network.
But I will say, that, like, if he wasn't such a dick, he would have just taken care of it in his hotel room.
Yeah.
Like a normal lonely
Yeah,
person.
like-
I mean,
a polite shut-in. Yeah.
like
no, I
a
got you.
polite shut-in. I mean, a lot of people have been there, and honestly, I say call a helpline. But honestly, like, you're really like,
What are you, too good for tranquilizers and boxed wine, Harris? Come on.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, especially because the song they're playing is specifically supposed to be like an olive branch to Harris.
I know,
Wow.
and hearing it doesn't make him like pause, right? Because they're like, "Let's sing, Find It," and they're like, "Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm sure." "Are you okay with it?" Because we know you've been raped by him. "Yeah, I'm fine
Yeah,
with
my
it."
feelings aren't as important as Harris's.
We have to reach out to him, to the man who disappeared after, getting humiliated.
And meanwhile, he's about to pull almost like a suicidal Phantom of the Opera move in the middle of
right,
their
and
debut.
he's standing in those rafters, and they start singing this song, and I thought, oh, maybe it'll touch him, and he'll realize. But no, the motherfucker jumps anyway.
Samantha, I'm starting to get a feeling that when he was going to jump, like your thumbs were starting to leave your fists, and you started smiling. You're like, "Come on, dickhead."
No, only because I did not want to ruin the girls' set. And also, I wanted to hear the rest of that song. Because the best part of this movie is the music. Like, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, like, and, oh my God, guys. The line that was like, one life is gone, but a new one is reborn. I was like, you ableist fucks. He was just in a wheelchair. Like, I was like, he's not dead, all right? He wasn't dead. He wasn't never dead. And it wasn't just one life. It was 4 lives.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was a Nazi,
Yeah.
so I'm only going to count 3 because Z-Man may have killed people, but he was my favorite until he went crazy.
The whole crazy murder thing never changed my heart. Z-Man consistently was my favorite character.
Yeah, Z-Man's parties are fucking dope. And like, I would like to hang out with Z-Man.
I don't care if he murders. Z-Man's dope. There's your t-shirt.
It's so funny because the murders actually didn't bother me as much as him trying to take advantage of Jungle Boy. I mean, like,
Yeah, that is a little bit weird when it's just like hands starting to slide down.
like
Although
I'm just
I will
gonna do
say,
this.
man, Lance Rock was being pretty damn mean to him before he chopped his head off. Like he's like, "Oh no, man, you're just some crazy, ugly, mixed up chick." I'm like, Lance, no.
Lance is a moron, all right? Like, you don't insult someone that has a fucking sword and is clearly having a psychotic breakdown in front of you. Like, that's just common sense. Like every now and then, like, I'm a New Yorker. I read the subway. Every now and then, you can be a little crazy, and that'll back people off. But like, if they have a weapon, it's not a great idea. Just a survival tip to anyone listening.
Oh yeah, man. And the weirdest thing is like when I'm watching this scene, because I'm watching this scene for the first time in like the early '90s, but like for some reason that scene between Z-Man and Lance Rock, like right before the murder, I was like, this reminds me a lot of My Own Private Idaho with like Z-Man in the Udo Kier role and like Lance Rock in the Keanu Reeves role. I thought, wow. I wonder if I wonder if they kind of borrowed a little, because I always, I mean, this is maybe just me being crazy, but there's so many times I'll see other movies and I'm like, I wonder if they got that from Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. I don't know.
I mean, it's a cult film. Like, there's definitely a lot of influence going forward. Like, especially when you look at things that are like set in like the late 60s when they're trying to do that kind of like love style. Although also, again, this movie kind of sort of was supposed to be a satire. So things like the moralizing at the end are potentially satirical in nature.
I hope it was satirical. I really, because it's so ham-fisted. Like it was so clunky. Like the movie was so perfectly like off the rails. And then that monologue at the end, I'm like, no. I remember being in my dorm with a bunch of my friends stoned out of our minds. And when that monologue came on, everyone in the room was like, shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Oh, especially when it's like when we get to Casey and Roxanne, and it's just like, Though their love itself was not evil came from it.
Even it made Jesus cry tears.
I mean, even if you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say it's the abortion that she had, which also she was raped,
right.
But like, even if you're going to go with that, like, what the fuck, guys? What the fuck?
Well, I just kept going. God, what was I saying to myself? I was just like, why are you victim blaming? Because even with Lance, they were like, he was a taker. When you take all the time, karma has a way of getting back at you. And I was like, wait. Like, I know that he was kind of selling himself for the evening, but like, there was no agreement on touching. And even if he was a dick about it, like, no is no. And Z-Man should have understood that no is no. Like, no. Lance was an asshole. Lance was an asshole from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie.
Well, that seems like what Z-Man was after, really.
Yeah.
100%. And Z-Man definitely tried to lay it on thick a couple of times. He kept getting rejected. And like, I was just like, I know that Lance is not a good person. He's not. But like, let's not say like, karma's the reason he died. Right. No, Z-Man being high off his ass and losing it because he was rejected once again.
I know. Like, red boys deserve to be decapitated? What are you, John Wayne Gacy? Like, what?
Right.
Exactly. I actually just finished a documentary about John Wayne Gacy, and so that whole rope thing, I was like, nope. Flashbacks of the documentary.
Yeah, man. Like, there was, what's funny is like, right around the time that like this movie came out was like really like, that was right towards like the birth of like the biggest boon in serial killers in American history. Like 1970 to 1978 was crazy. You have John Wayne Gacy, you have Edward Kemper, you have Henry Lee Lucas, you have all these like, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm not saying this
doesn't
movie
that correspond with the rise of leaded gasoline?
Does it?
Oh, wow.
Like, there's like some weird stats on that one. Like, just in general, like the number of murders associated with like exposure to lead by the general populace is like fairly like,
wow.
It's definitely a correlation, if not a causality.
That's one of your best tangent trees ever.
I would like to say that we don't actually have facts on that. Please do not quote us.
But do look at it and let us know, because I like, this is sort of just the general like, I remember like hearing shit about that kind of thing, and I'm curious, like, wow, are there numbers that match up to this one?
I mean, think about it, Pete. This was these were the ages of the gas guzzler, like the cars that thought they were boats. Like the Chevy Nova, the Chrysler New Yorker, these cars that were like literally the size of tanks that were just guzzling entire. I mean, like we're about. I can feel us going into the precipice of a tangent tree. So I'm like trying to like stand at the edge, being like, Casey, is it okay we go this way, or are we going back to the film, or
we can go? Honestly, we can go wherever. It was just like I was like literally like clinging to like a thought. I was like, we can go wherever we want, but let me just get this one out, which was the whole like it technically was a sequel to the original, but they had to do rewrites.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Sean, his drink is laced by Z-Man. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Then let your tangent tree grow, my brother.
He has
well, that's what
no
they did with this
idea.
movie. Like the script goes all over the place and keeps adding new plots like at random spots.
Oh yeah.
This movie is a soap opera.
Oh yeah.
Like this movie is like a soap opera. Like, you know, like there were a couple of times that I was like, no me diga. Like it was ridiculous. Like,
Ay santo.
like honestly, like even like, okay, so the boxer who may or may not be a very uncomfortable, possibly slightly racist interpretation of Muhammad Ali, he convinces Petty Prue. Pets. I knew it was something. Pets. I was like, of course she'd be named after, you know, something you keep. Pets. He convinces Pets, you know, because she's so upset. Like, you know, first of all, he asks her if she's dating a colored brother and says he's going to take her out to the dance floor and keep her warm for her boyfriend.
Oof.
And then he basically convinces her when she's really upset, like emotionally distraught over the fact that both Kelly and douchebag, not Lance, the other, have, you know, that like they've both been humiliated and so hurt. And oh my God. And he's just like, they don't need you. They don't need you. I need you. And then she sleeps with him. And then her boyfriend comes home. And I'm like, oh no, the law student. Like, it's so ridiculous, guys.
The whole time you were talking, you had said something so inspirational at the beginning of that sentence that my mind exploded. I love the idea. We have to make the sketch the Telemundo version. Telenovela of beyond Los Valles of the Dulces.
honestly, it would be incredible, and the acting would still be at the same level of heightened thing.
Yeah,
and the only thing is that maybe the car scene might be even more violent.
But who would play Z-Man though? I mean, who would what?
Oh man!
You know, like I think Lin-Manuel might be wonderful. That is that his name? From The Heights and
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
He might be a great Z-Man.
Yeah, although Z-Man, like one of the things that's interesting is that he has this like ethereal quality. Like he's Mediterranean, like the actor is actually Mediterranean Native American.
Oh wow!
And there's like this sort of like interesting aspect of like, well, like aside from like some references of like, you know, like, oh, is he your brother? Yada yada yada. This is not a racist film. Like there's no point where any of the characters who are black are like put down by virtue of their race or like cast aside. No, but
there's
like,
definitely some white written black dialogue where I'm like,
yes.
Like,
yeah,
hey,
absolutely.
so brother,
100%.
I'd like to take a bite of your watermelons. I'm like, dear God, no.
yeah. It's funny because within the universe, no one is racist. However, the actual script itself has issues.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many times there whenever like I would get like really uncomfortable because when I was watching it in college, I was watching it with one of my best friends who was black in the room, and every time two black people start talking, I get this like acid reflux in my stomach. I'm like, please don't say something awful. Please don't say something awful. Stay, soul brother. What's going on with that sister? And I'd be like, I'm so sorry, Tony. I'm so sorry.
I will say, going back to Case's theory, that a lot of the slang didn't work, though. Like, I think that Ebert threw in a "you dig" anytime he didn't know what else to put in. Like,
there's one point where Kelly answers the phone and she goes, "It's your dime."
Knock on his neighbor's door. He'd be like, "Excuse me, Lamont. What is it, Roger? How would you say this? I'm in the middle of. Please, would you say that you dig it? Please go away, Roger."
I'm literally cooking pasta right now. Please stop.
I'm writing my dissertation. Okay, would you say that you dig your dissertation? Goodbye, Roger.
But actually, I mean, like, again, like, good point here. Emerson, like, is a aspiring law student. So, like, again, I don't think that the universe itself is racist. I think that just Roger Ebert is trying to sound cool.
Roger,
and is not.
I don't think he's a racist. I don't think Roger Ebert ever had any friends that weren't white or nerds.
Right.
Yeah. It's not written authentically is the nicest way we can place it.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the actual finale? Well, I mean, we've referenced a lot of it, but like the thing that is probably the most awkward to talk about, especially in the current,
baby.
Oh my God. Especially in the current like culture of today. And like, I don't know what the right words to say are on this one. Like, it's revealed that Z-Man has boobs and it's interpreted as Z-Man has always been a woman in drag of some sort. And I don't know what the right kind of anything is here to describe it.
It's kind of strange because the script doesn't let you know if Z-Man is trans or if Z-Man is intersex. It kind of leaves it up to your interpretation. But Z-Man is saying that in the moment, Z-Man is Superwoman. So I think from here on out, let's refer to Z-Man as Superwoman.
Right.
So at the point that Superwoman reveals her breast to what is a very awkward shot underneath of
of bad.
Also, to be clear, the actor is a man.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the actor is a man.
A very pretty man.
Yes, with incredible bone structure.
Yeah, like very.
Oh my God. Again, it's this weird quality of just being like this like otherworldly beauty.
Yeah, it definitely, and it came around at the right point in my life where I started going like, maybe I could flip that way.
Yeah.
That Z-Man ain't bad looking.
Like a Kinsey too.
I mean, honestly, like with a bone structure like that, I'm pretty sure that Z-Man could have had other people. And I think that
he could have done better than Lance Rock. Come on.
1,000%.
But Lance Rock had a Jack Kirby face. I have so many notes. It's like, that's exactly how Jack Kirby draws superheroes. And like, if you're into superhero shit, which I think Z-Man, both the nickname they go by in their day to day and their boudoir persona, and then how they dress all their other people for their special parties. Like, I think Z-Man's into superheroes. Like, I can imagine that Jack Kirby is Z-Man's kink.
Wow, man.
Yeah, that's probably. Yeah.
Now just stand in a pose with one fist up, Lance.
Leap forward. We'll call it your splash page. We'll call it the splash page because I splash.
Here's the thing. You can also make the case that like Lance put himself out there for a lot of different people. I mean, like he was dating women that were much, much older. Like he's basically a gold digger. Like he's like,
basically a Scientologist.
Well, actually in the notes it lists Lance as a gigolo, but I don't know if that's really anything beyond just sort of like a moralizing component to it.
Yeah, I think that because
gold digger I think is right.
Because in the first act when Z-Man is kind of telling Kelly all about everyone at the party, he does say that Lance is an actor and that he uses his body and his good looks to kind of try to advance that. But I assume that he's not actually like very good at acting. Yeah. And so he probably...
he's a part-time actor.
Right. And so he's basically like dating all of these rich women. And so going after Kelly, he goes after her because he knows that she's going to inherit money and she's at least more attractive and younger than most of the women he's been dating. And I think on some level for Z-Man, he's like, hello, I am bewitching. Right. I am Superwoman and I am so fucking rich. How much of my alcohol and my drugs have you had? Give some to mama. Right. Like, honestly, like, I really
time
feel
to
like
pay
that's
the
part of
piper,
it.
Lance.
Yes, exactly. Like, I feel like that's part of it, which is like very difficult for someone like me who wants to not become a Z-Man apologist, but feels myself inching that way, right. because he really is so open and wonderful about like just accepting like just like Aunt Susan when Kelly shows up and like starts telling him stuff, he shows her around. Like, yes, she is gorgeous, you know, like, but he shows her around, he like tells her the lay of the land and then insists that she plays his party, and he knows all the important people that are at his party. He knows that can be a boost. He is actually quite generous, even if he is, you know, a little bit out there and likes to use couplets and dramatic language. But he is actually very generous to Kelly, who's Susan's niece, the minute he meets her.
True.
So, like, you know, and this is why people like me and Sean are now trying to excuse him, even though he's a monster at the end. I admit it. He's a monster at the end.
I know, but he's just such a beautiful monster. he really is. Usually, I always think like, I think Tim Curry may have cribbed a little from Z-Man in creating Frankenfurter in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm in terms of I can see.
I mean, even the accent, even his enunciation was like, oh, wait a second, because it's only about 3 years difference, 4 years.
I think where the script makes it complicated is the fact that it is revealed that Z-Man has these breasts at the exact moment that Z-Man is fucking losing it, which creates a intersex / trans villain, which makes it in a today's light not great.
Oh yeah,
right.
You know,
particularly because it was a last minute change. It was written. They had already started shooting the movie when they did, because they started shooting it before they had like fully fleshed out the script.
Go on.
I know, right? Yeah. So that decision was made after they'd already started filming a good chunk of it, so they couldn't go back and rewrite some of the scenes to sort of support that thesis. Like there are some. Like you can tell some subplots are like there from the beginning, like the stuff with Roxanne and Casey, like they start alluding to Roxanne having a thing for European girls because they're more open from the first scene she shows up. And like Casey, every single time there's any talk of sexuality is super uncomfortable, except for when talking about it with women. Like, so they're like that's set up throughout the entire piece. But the Z-Man stuff is really just like they got to this point. They're like, fuck, how do we finish this movie? What if Z-Man actually a woman and murders everyone?
I love it.
Keep in mind all the drugs, and they're like, yes.
You're not just saying that because we just finished this 8-ball. No, I'm saying because it's a picture. This is going to be the greatest. This is going to be my 10 Commandments, my Ziegfeld Follies.
I think the only thing is that like. So again, like the biggest problem seen from a modern light is that you're making even if it's done at the last minute, right? It's still making a trans character the villain when there's not a lot of trans representation. And so like that was an uncomfortable moment, followed by a beheading that was fine for me, apparently.
Oh yeah.
but
ooh,
like,
that Lance Rock.
you know, and so like I think up until that moment, you know, Z-Man being Z-Man was fine. And even like being gay, fine. Like, you know, he'd never crossed really a line of true impropriety other than just being like, anytime you want a space in my bed, which was like kind of normal. Actually, that was like the most chill anyone had been in this movie.
Absolutely. He was a gentleman compared to Harris.
He was like the least skeevy person in this film in a lot of ways until he lost it.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. Even the first time I saw it, when like Lance Rock starts egging him on, I remember thinking, "Oh, this won't end well."
Right.
Yeah.
I thought and it sucks because up until that point, the movie is actually like sure, there's some stereotypes. Again, it's the same problem that we have with like its representation of black people, but like it's fairly gay friendly. Up until you get to all of a sudden the gay panic finale.
Right.
It is
and the
finale. And then Z-Man eats all of them because that's what they do. Them. Yeah.
And the super preachy end with the like because up until the point, like it's actually like, you know, like everyone is doing everything that they want. And I mean, the Ice Queen, her relationship with poor Casey is very strange and also
wildly underdeveloped.
It's underdeveloped, but at the same time, the Ice Queen is definitely a manipulator and a predator, and like, and it's very odd. Like that whole scene where like after she has the abortion, she's like under the tree. And she's just like, thank you for being there for me. And then, like, the Ice Queen just reaches out and touches her boob. And I was like, how long has it been since she had her abortion? What are you doing? Like, she looks lifeless under this tree. What the fuck, yo? Like,
yeah, the timing on all that is weird because, like, I got their
Casey didn't have a good time in this movie at all.
No, Casey did not. No,
honestly, the fact that Casey dies and Harris lives and he gets to walk again made me so angry at the end. God. Like, I was just like,
you know what? I can't believe I'm saying this, but what was the miracle that let Harris walk again?
Well, they just said in some minor percentage, and then the stress of being there while the scuffling was going on to try to like restrain Z-Man, and ultimately Z-Man dies, like triggered Harris's walking. However, I have a giant question, which is why was Harris there? Like, they get the call and they're like, we have to race over there. And they wheel out Harris and then they help him get into the car very slowly and they fold up his wheelchair and like stick it in the trunk. And then they drive on over. And I'm like, why did you waste your time? Why wasn't Harris just on the phone trying to call the police to get there while they were racing over there?
Just tie Harris to the hood like a deer. You would have gotten there faster.
Just have like a ski line for an hang run.
Yeah, honestly, like, several mistakes were made. First, Casey, why would you call your friends? Call the cops. Right. You got one phone call to make. Right. Why are you wasting? Kelly, I'm at Z-Man's house and he's killing everyone. Come over. What?
And bring your guitar and tambourine.
And then Harris grabs the phone because apparently Kelly doesn't know how to listen to information. He's just a douche nozzle. And so he grabs the phone and she's just like, oh my God, it's happening. Call the police. And he's just like, guys, we gotta go. That's not what Casey said, Harris. That's not what she said. She said, call the police. And they get up and like Scooby-Doo music. And I was just like, what is he? He's Shaggy? He can't do anything.
He's not even as useful as Shaggy. Like Shaggy at least accidentally foils bad guys. Harris just screws everything up.
Like, Harris couldn't even do anything before he was in a wheelchair. Like, Harris has been ineffectual this entire movie. Like,
and now he's just ineffectual with wheels.
Like, in fact, the wheels might make him more effectual, but like, it doesn't matter.
But not Harris.
Because it's Harris, and he's the
cousin Oliver of everything. My God.
He's Scrappy-Doo.
He's Scrappy-Doo.
Scrappy-Doo. I hate him.
Let me at him.
I hate him just as much. I know, it's so funny. Like, I hadn't realized how much I hated Harris until he started talking about him, and then I was like, "You're right. I am always
fuck this
Harris.
Guy.
Yeah, fuck Harris."
So, but in my head, I'm just like, all of these people are morons. Like, why? Like, I'm like, what?
Yeah, not a sharp knife in the drawer. I mean,
oh no,
we have to head over there. No, you don't. People are being murdered. Like, what is this? No, you call the cops. Maybe you go and you stand at a safe distance. You don't know what this man is killing with. He's got so many weapons in his house and so much drugs. You know this.
If that film had been made today, they all just would have gotten out their smartphones and filmed it from across the street.
And for all they knew, like, his Nazi bartender was on his side.
What? Like, I mean, what was that? What was, like, I'm asking you. I'm literally asking you. What was that? When the whole Nazi thing in there, like, whoa. Like,
well, so they set it up early. They do mention that he's got this Germanic continents, and then they keep on having allusions to World War II throughout it. So it is set up.
Wow.
And then they deck him out in Nazi regalia for the finale.
Yeah.
Which, frankly, if you want me to care less about you murdering a character who, up until this point, has only been nice. He has served drinks. He has been very friendly with the African-American waiter, which is, again, like, this is actually a world that doesn't have racism, which is interesting that, like, one of the villains? I don't know. One of the casualties of this whole situation is a Nazi, and you're like, I care less about this one because he's a Nazi.
The real victims was the polite Nazi, really.
I mean, he doesn't do anything bad at any point
except
in this.
For putting on a Nazi uniform.
Well, exactly, except for putting a Nazi uniform at the insistence of his boss.
That's true.
But then his boss yells at him, like literally when he's murdering him, he basically says something with like, you think you can get away with it and live?
Oh yeah, he does like killing 6 million Jews at one point.
Yeah, he's like, well, they were in camps, and like and he's saying this as he's stabbing him, and I'm like, did they put this in here just so at the end they could stab a Nazi? Like, is that the whole reason why he was a secret Nazi all along? Like,
and that
I don't know about secret.
That was a young Tarantino's inspiration for Inglourious Bastards. Once again, the giving tree creatively that is Russ Meyer's opus.
Oh, yeah. Tarantino definitely likes this movie. Like, there's no question that this would be on his list of, like, inspirations.
They gave him, like, the name of a war criminal. I can't remember what it was. He was like, it is believed that he was possibly, and I can't remember what it was, but I was just like, are you guys, I was like, I'm not going to Google this because I don't want Google to be like, why is she looking up old Nazis? but I was like, is that an actual name?
I just love the idea of Google being like, Samantha.
Listen, at this point, every time I rent or stream a movie for this podcast, I seriously wonder if my internet is like, Samantha, do you need help? Are you
Sure,
okay?
we got another blip again. Uh-oh. Scroll it.
Oh, God, this movie. I mean, like, oh, man, there's just so much. There's just so much. Like, we haven't even talked about Kelly aside from like as her relations to others. Because theoretically,
try being a main character in that circus. I mean, like, how do you pull focus in that movie? You know, it's like, right? Oh, really?
Well, not with that American accent.
Oh, okay. Because there were some times where I was
British.
Like, that was an odd inflection there. It makes a lot of sense now, actually.
Yeah.
Wow, because she did kind of look like Lulu, who was like a big, like buxom redheaded British singer in the '60s. She was her big hit was "To Sir with Love" with Sidney Poitier.
Oh yeah,
and she does kind of look a bit like her. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that. I will say about Kelly, and then we should probably break for ads because this is gonna be like a 3-hour episode if we don't curb ourselves. But I will say about Kelly that she that like really her biggest flaw is just her ambition, and so like I kind of didn't have a problem with her at all. Like she really is freewheeling and she likes the place that she's living in and she's fine with free expression. And like, I kind of was just like, yeah, no, fuck Harris. Like, I didn't like Lance, but like, I was just like, yeah, you don't need that guy. Like, he's dead weight. He's a rock. He's bringing you down. You're a star, baby. Keep going.
Absolutely. Although when she sleeps with Porter Hall, I'm like, Kelly.
Yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that was probably the one scene that I was like really dubious about. But she already had started to sort of be controlled by Lance, which was honestly her worst thing that she did in this whole thing, because he started being like, no, you should try to demand more money. And
which honestly, like, I think she would have backed off a little bit had Porter not been such a dick when she finally went to the office to see her aunt. Like, I think she had gone there to like actually have a conversation and maybe talk about the possibility. But the fact that he was just like, you dirty whore, you're a terrible human being. And she was like, now I want half. Fuck you, motherfucker. And I respect that. I respect that. You know, the worst thing she did, her line reading for her guilt about Harris. That's the worst thing she did.
I thought you were going to say the worst thing she did was Harris.
That's fair.
Also true. I mean, like, yeah. All the stuff with Porter, but like Kelly is just not the strongest actress in this whole thing, which is good that she isn't given the most juicy parts in this all. Like I can't imagine her doing like Casey's role. Like I
agree.
actually think Cynthia Myers did a really good job in that part and like selling this. But yeah, all the stuff with her talking about her inheritance, about her relationship with her Aunt Susan, like all this stuff's really awkward. She is a champ, however, because they have one shot. Like there's a lot of really creative like camera movements and so forth in this movie. And there's one shot that comes up through a bed on her having sex with Lance. And you can see clearly that they are having sex on the bed springs of a mattress, like no fabric, period. And then when it cuts back to them and it's more like traditional shot, like there's sheets.
The magic of Bed Bath and Beyond.
So they had this very clear shot that she was okay with like just lying there on like literal bed springs while they were doing this sex scene. And it was like, yeah. That girl is like, put up with some bullshit on this shoot. Yeah, like kind of, yeah. Man. Also, fuck Porter. Like all of his scenes are like, I don't understand why he's such a dickbag. Yeah. Like he's like, you're in a rock band, a hippie. Yeah. What would your father, the senator, say? Yeah. And he's like sexually harasses everyone.
I keep waiting for him to tie someone to the railroad tracks and twiddle his mustache.
Actually, Porter's the only person that's worse than Harris in this movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I did not see that coming, but okay.
Yeah. Every now there's a plot term like no me diga. Like it's just like there it is. There you go.
Well, thank God Charles Napier, showed up and made it all better, I mean.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, like when he gets fired, I'm like, yes, thank you. That's exactly what we needed here. That's good. I have two notes that I want to throw out before we take a break. Okay. One is that this is Pam Grier's first feature film.
Whoa.
She is an extra. She's not like a big part. She's credited as Woman 4 at one of the parties. And I watched the second time I knew she was there, and I like watched for her, and I didn't see her. So like, but she's she's even in the credits, not just on IMDb. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The other thing is that this is a movie, as we've noted, written by Roger Ebert.
Oh my!
Guess what Gene Siskel had to say about this movie?
Yeah, let her rip.
Please tell us.
So let's see. Gene Siskel gave the film 0 stars out of 4, writing in the Chicago Tribune that the film unfolds with all of the humor and excitement of a padded bra. And then he goes on to say, boredom aplenty is provided by a screenplay, which for some reason has been turned over to a screenwriting neophyte, which is like, that's amazing. Yeah.
I just love the idea of Roger Ebert sitting in his apartment and reading this and being like, Siskel.
I'll get you someday, Siskel.
And I love the idea that it just cuts back to a full head of hair, Gene Siskel being like,
wow. Yeah. So this actually goes into my final point about this movie, which is that while it made its money, it was critically panned at the time. Like it has become a cult film in retrospect, especially because of, ample reasons that many of the actors might be presenting for perhaps fans who were looking for something like that. One of the great quotes
Christian Science Monitor have to say
Charles Champlin of the Los Angeles Times had a great quote, which is, "It is a grievously sick melange of hyper-mammalian girls."
That should have been on the DVD cover.
It's amazing, like just as a quote. But the point is, critics hated this movie. Like it did do at the very least double its total cost, like including publicity and media, but possibly even much better than that. So like from the standpoint of like financial success, it did well, but like, what wasn't well regarded at the time and comes off as a fever dream to everyone who watches it. And sometimes you're in the mood for that. But so why don't we take a break, shout out one of the shows on our network, and when we come back, let's speculate on how we could have possibly turned down the fever a little bit. Just, made it so that like you can, hold down some water a little bit better for this one.
Yeah. Make it a little more dreamy and less nightmarish.
See, I'd go the other way, but that's just me.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds,
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun, whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there. So we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.
And we're back. All right, so we're gonna talk about how we could fix this movie. I'm gonna throw this one out there at the top, which is that this is not the first time I've made this claim on the show, but I think that this is a movie that would do wonderfully as a stage adaptation. I think that as a musical, and sure, it can be a titillating musical, it can be a burlesque show. We know people who do burlesque shows. There are a lot of like people who could make a lot out of this. The music's There's a lot of bangers on this soundtrack. Even if we can't get the licensed music, like even if you're just taking the stuff that was written for it, which is most of the girls' stuff, like, and you can fill it out a little bit. The unreality of a lot of the scenes are fucking amazing. Like there's all this like time compression that feels really weird in this movie because it's like, well, for one thing, there's all these shots that they reuse. Like they show us the same party a whole bunch of times. And so it's really hard to track like where scenes are. But on stage, we're okay with that. Like, we would all be down for these like party scenes being like, oh, it's actually a stretch of time and things like that. And I think it would just work really well and I think it would be a purifying effect on the sort of lots of ideas that are going on in this movie that didn't necessarily get boiled down to the right distillate. I think it would be a fucking dope show. I'm don't know of anyone ever doing it. I hope someone does.
Listen, I'm with you. I say let John Waters do the book and let Paul Williams do the music. Like really just
Waters is cited as adoring this movie. So I actually could see that happen.
Oh, John Waters would do it so perfectly, like so lovingly, you know, like Hairspray. I mean, like, oh yeah, it would be, and it would also John Waters at the helm. You know, he'd be a lot more responsible about the gay panic and like.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yes. 1,000%. He would fix
and
that.
Paul Williams was writing hits when this movie came out. I mean, you gotta bear in mind, Paul Williams wrote all of the songs for the Muppet movie, including the Rainbow Connection. He also wrote the Carpenters song "We've Only Just Begun." He was also an iconic '70s songwriter. And like, if you can't get the rights to some of the songs that we had, Paul Williams, I bet, would jump right in there. I mean, what else is he doing right now? I mean,
it would be real good. Yeah. It'd be real fucking good.
And I love the idea of a staged version of this, man. That would be like a midnight show that you go to in some theater at the Minetta Lane at like midnight. You know, it becomes like
now I'm like kind of curious if we should start like working on this for like Nymph. Like
this thing would blow the doors off Edinburgh Fringe.
I mean, you could definitely show it at regular times. My one of my friends, this was years ago, she was in Showgirls the musical, and it was fun. It was great. It was wonderful, and everyone was
I used to work at the theater for Naked Boys Singing.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
like we could definitely get into this and like that, but that is not the thing that they would have done at the time. This is me talking about an adaptation, which is why I'm just throwing it out there at the top because I'm not allowed to go first. So Sean.
He takes too many notes.
Sam has a hard rule ever since she came on as co-host that I cannot go before her because of my Conan the Barbarian pitch. The 2011 remake movie pitch. No, we're not. We have not talked about the 1980 classic or 1982 classic because that shit is fucking gold.
Yeah. No argument there, pal.
So again, I'm not allowed to go first, but that doesn't mean that you have to go first, Sean. It can be Sam. You are our guest. You are allowed to.
You know what? I want to see. I want to know Sam's take.
All right. Well, then I will go first. So, honestly, I think that this movie is a lot of fun, despite the fact that my brain had to process it later. It's definitely one of those things that it's a ride, and it's going to throw everything and the kitchen sink at you. And I'm kind of fine with that. I'm fine with all of that. I'm fine with the debauchery. I'm fine with, we all know I love Z-Man. You know what? I'm even going to keep my least favorite characters in here. I might want them to look over the script and kind of fix some of the lines because I think some of the lines are very clunky, especially when it comes to slang of that time. It's just very and there are things that are very heavy-handed. Like Porter's character is very heavy-handed. He's almost cartoonish with the way that he is. So I would want to.
It's like he defecates Legos. It's like-
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I would keep his essence the same, but I would fix some of his lines to kind of be a real creepy, like to feel more real, and the way that he's trying to convince Susan that Kelly is someone that she couldn't trust feel more realistic, because he never really feels like a full threat because he's so cartoonishly bad at convincing, because he's just like, she's a whore, she's a terrible person, she's a hippie, she's a rock star, how could you even trust her? And it's like, okay, this kid already had, like, she's been in LA in a few days and she already has like a record contract. Like, clearly she's not here just for Susan's money. So I feel like I would like to make him feel a little more real, so that the stakes feel more real for Kelly, giving her like a real reason to desperately sleep with him. Like, if we're going that route, I'm not changing much. I'm polishing, really, is what I want for my another pass. We can still let Kelly, because her main flaw is like this like blind ambition to get the inheritance that her mother never received, to get a portion of it, and to live her dreams on stage, right? This is a classic band gets to that lead singer, all fame goes to her head. That's fine. And Porter being in the way and seducing him and realizing that her body, because of her experience, first with manager Fuckhead and then with Lance, this shows her that her body has power. That's fine. She can do that. I don't necessarily want to take that out of the script. I'm going to put a shirt on the boxer because it's just ridiculous. And it's fine. He can take it off, but he should show up to the party with the shirt on. And then when he's dancing, take it off. I just don't want him to be such a caricature that he's just always nude everywhere he goes until he finds his amazing yellow jacket later on.
His court-appointed yellow jacket.
His court-appointed.
I sentence you to a barracuda.
The end is a little troubling to me because of the gay panic, but I'm okay with it going down. I'm okay with like it getting crazy. I probably wouldn't have introduced the added measure of trans, like, because that just takes it to another level where it's like again, I understand like this is all stops pulled out shock, but I would feel like that's where I would pull back specifically and have him just have Z-Man be really fucking pissed off at being rejected. And I think he should like basically slut shame, even though I hate slut shaming, but I think he should actually like voice his disappointment about the fact that he feels that Lance would sleep with anyone and do anything for money. So why not me? And like make it like rooted in a real like rejection, and this fact that like maybe like he throws all these parties because he doesn't think that people like him enough. And that's kind of why, if he's supplying all the booze and all the alcohol and all that's the same thing, Samantha, the booze and the drugs and the music and he's doing all this stuff to keep people going. And that fleshes Z-Man out even more. I mean, you do get a moment of him looking disappointed that the girls decide to sing Find It at the show, rather than sing one of the songs that he clearly helped them with on the album that he helped support. And so I do think that there are clues every now and then that Z-Man may be more susceptible to the idea of just like rejection, right? Like, even though he's this big time thing. So I would like to like flesh that out a little bit for him, especially because I love him and I think that he's genuinely like a really great character. So, expand Z-Man's role so that you have a vulnerability for when he starts murdering everyone. Although I'm not quite sure why he murders the Ice Queen, other than like he's just got to get rid of the evidence now that he's murdered Jungle Boy. So I guess that's why. But she was sleeping. And I feel like she might be the kind of friend that would help you hide the body. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that happens just for the sake of gore. And I feel like it plays against the character types. Like, I feel like if he had woken her up and like, I murdered Jungle Boy, she'd be like, I've got some shovels and I know where we can find some pigs. Like, I just feel like...
And then it just freeze frames on them high-fiving. Like,
yeah, like
Well, especially because Casey, like, he doesn't see Casey. Like, he sees Otto, like, spot him with the severed head. But, like, Casey sees him and then runs away. And he has no reason to think that anyone saw him aside from the Nazi. If it, like, it makes sense if it's like, oh, Casey's run away and he goes into the room and, like, he's like, Casey's not here, but, like, I don't know if she's just playing dumb or something like that. I'm going to eliminate all the witnesses because that's already set up. But, like, they're not witnesses at this point.
Yeah, and also Otto basically called him his lord, and so, like, and he works for him. I don't understand why he was just like, oh, I got to kill that guy. I feel like Otto would be like, sir, you've done it again. What are we going to do with you?
Laugh track. Everybody shrugs, looks directly to camera.
But let's say I let everything play out the way that it did. I really don't want to leave Otto as a Nazi person, though, because I get it.
Talk about
stabbing a Nazi.
Panic.
Yeah, I get it. Stabbing a Nazi, cathartic, but
sure, we've all thought about it.
I just, punch a Nazi, stab a Nazi, fine. But I just felt like it was very jarring for me to see that uniform when there wasn't, like, a historical reason to see the uniform. Like, I was just like, what the fuck? Like, and I don't care that there was, like, hints that maybe he could have been. Like, he could have been, like, I mean, I guess... Yeah, we're in the middle of the Cold War. He could have been Russian. Like, that would have been less uncomfortable for me.
Joseph Stalin would have been actually a nicer,
like,
costume.
Make him a Soviet spy. Like, let's have this be like Red Scare Panic instead. Like, let's have maybe Z-Man is communist. Maybe that's why he's getting all the capitalist high all the time, so they can't be productive.
I'm with that, actually. That's brilliant.
It's fun. And so, strike that. And, Casey can still be dumb. She can still call her friends. They can still be the Scooby gang. I still think it's dumb, but how many times have people done terrible, dumb things? Here's the thing. When they get there, they manage to save Casey. But what's his name? The guy I hate?
Harris.
Yes, him. I've purposely forgotten his name because I hate him so much. Harris gives his life for Casey, and Casey gets to live. Even though I hate redemption arcs, but honestly, I want him to die.
It is a miracle. He's able to stand just in time to catch the bullet.
To catch the bullet? That would honestly be one of the funniest moments. He's like, I can walk! And the bullet just goes right through him.
It would have been amazing. And then they subdue Z-Man, and, like, the end of the movie are the three girls hugging each other, like, just being BFFs like they always were, and picking up their instruments and making music, and none of that preachy bullshit at the end that makes no sense and goes back on everything, and no one getting married, because honestly, that's just a wet blanket bullshit. Like, I was like, so basically, is this like one of those, like, weird conservative fever dreams, like, and they all had sex and now they're condemned and now we're all going to get married? See, guys, being in heterosexual relationships is so much better than being gay or having free love. You're welcome.
Yeah, well, and we didn't talk about this, but
thank God we're repressed, Mother.
We didn't talk about this thing, but, like, Harris is accused at one point of being gay and, like, takes it really harshly. Like, that's sort of is why he tries to commit suicide, or it's like or rather, it's why he gets high and rapes Casey, and then Harris is trash. Let's be clear. But there is sort of an element at the very end of him trying to suppress it.
I'm getting you both T-shirts. I'm having them made. They're just going to say "fuck Harris."
But I have to say that what I would really love is so the three girls, they're together at the end, and they make the final song, and we get to hear one more kick-ass song from the ladies, and that's what plays us out.
Yeah, under new management. Aunt Susan can be their new manager, or like the new money force. So, like, she could be funding their newest album.
Absolutely, and then it's a feminist from the ashes movie defeating communism and killing Harris.
Like they write this, like, really awesome, like, ballad requiem kind of thing for the end of the movie to like mourn the dead and the people and whatnot, but they together.
But they don't mourn Harris.
I mean, they probably mourn Harris because they're lame, but that's not the point.
It's just, what I love is after this big musical redemptive like ballad number, you still just see Harris's corpse in the driveway.
I was just thinking that, like collecting flies.
It's just his corpse in the wheelchair is just slowly rolling backwards down Laurel Canyon Boulevard while a slide whistle's going,
or like a coyote is tugging it along on the wheelchair.
Wah, wah. Yeah, like a coyote's got his ankle.
He was the worst, but he did give his life.
Now he feeds doggos.
Best, yeah. He was the worst, but the coyotes found him delicious. In
Feeding
the end,
nature.
in the
Hashtag blessed.
I just love the idea that the now 80-year-old actor who played Harris is watching it. It's like listening to this podcast, and like a single tear is going down his cheek. Like, I did my best.
I will say that the actor himself was not the problem.
Oh no!
It's just the role. So if you are listening to this, you did a good job.
You're a
I just
victim.
hated your character.
You're a victim of Roger Ebert's script.
You're a victim of Harris, the character. Like many people in this movie, including Harris himself.
Oh my God! Yes. Why? I know Harris. I just wish it had ended with like Harris and Porter being tied together to a railroad track and just Z-Man going by on, what do you call those cars where the two men?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It'd just be like Z-Man and like, I don't know, maybe Pam Grier. Why not? She was an extra.
All right, Sean, your turn.
I gotta say, I like a lot of the changes. There's if I'm allowed to do
No, it's a conversation.
Yeah, I would love to do this entirely as a sock puppet musical.
Yes.
Don't change a thing. We don't change a thing. We actually use the soundtrack of the actors' voices, but you shoot it in 35 millimeter lovingly, like it's a real film, but everything is replaced by sock puppets. You even green screen the actual shots of the sets, and you put the sock puppets in front of it. Even even the sex scenes are done by sock puppets.
Do you have like golf balls like under the sock puppet to emulate everything, except for tennis balls for Casey?
And you make it look as fake as possible, so that way like the gratuitous sex is somehow cute, you know. I mean, I will say, you guys got me thinking about the redoing the ending, though. You know, if you were to do it as a full-blown musical, I would like to change the ending. I would like to take out the whole Nazi thing. I'm with you there. And I would like to maybe he does kill Lance, but maybe not decapitates Lance. But I actually love the idea that Z-Man would be tackled by the girls and they would foil him, and there still would be that big redemptive musical arc at the end. But I also love that you have like that sort of addendum at the end where, you know, what happened to Z-Man, and you have Z-Man directing a huge musical in prison.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
You know, he'd be like, all right, boys, take it from the top, you know, and then suddenly just goes right into like Jermaine Jackson's Tonight's Gonna Be Dynamite, you know, and he's still producing amazing music from inside Rikers Island or something, like, you know, because that gives him room for a sequel. Because I think everyone is bummed out that Z-Man dies at the end and then he goes off the rails. I mean, it's like, who watches that movie and it's like, yeah, fuck Z-Man?
No one.
Like, nobody.
No one.
Yeah.
No one. He's the best.
Honestly, you know, you're right. Hashtag where's Z-Man's redemption arc?
Exactly. Not even redemption. Just let him live. You know, it's like killing Willem Dafoe at the end of Spider-Man. It's like, why are you going to get rid of the most interesting character and the interesting actor in there? Come on, man. That's just bad business.
Yeah, especially without setting up like a precedent. Like if this is just one weirdly bad trip, like, yeah, it's bad. Like, I'm not going to pretend it's not bad.
We're not going to say that decapitating Lance Rock isn't
right. No, it's not a sane move, but it is a really bad trip. And like, it is the kind of thing where like, I could see at least like having an interesting life in prison. You know?
Oh my God, he would rule that thing. He would be the kingpin, the musical kingpin of prison. There's your next movie. There's your Valley of the Rikers. You know, like beyond the Valley of the Rikers. That'd be amazing.
Locked up in the Valley of the Dolls.
Well, yeah, man. I would watch that. God damn it! Why couldn't we?
Yeah, we just make it like a Planet of the Apes style franchise and get increasingly complicated names, like as it gets longer and longer and longer.
Oh, also the other change that I would want to make is that I would want Harris to be played by character actor James Harris, who some of you might remember. He played Dr. Smith on the Lost in Space TV show.
Oh, the pain of it all.
Yes. Oh, Kenny, you can't leave me for Porter Hall. Oh, no. You see, and Z-Man gets increasingly jealous of like who can mince better, you know? I would love that. I would also love to if I had to recast. Yeah, Porter Hall, maybe I'd recast as like maybe Peter Lorre or like someone like more lecherous and less like Higgins from Magnum PI. You know, it's I don't know.
I think it's mostly the script for Porter Hall. Like it's just so in your face, and then like the time compression of this all. Like he knows everyone's last names and everything about them. Like when he first walks over to talk to them at every point. So there's never any scene of sort of like dissecting it or trying to like root out the whole like, oh, are they a hippie trying to steal all your money? Like it is just an underwritten character that is like pushed to do like the crazy scenes. Like there's like this embezzling subplot that they never fucking touch. Like they never do anything.
Oh yeah, they never really go. They pull a Tommy Wiseau move where like they introduce something and then they just leave it. Yeah.
It's because so much is happening. That's just so much is happening.
Sean, do you want to take a swing?
That was my swing, baby. The sock puppet version, and also having the ending having Z-Man live, and it ends with Z-Man having his own musical number at the end.
Yeah, I love that idea right there. Like, Z-Man in whatever capacity, just being alive and like continuing to be like a promoter of the arts. Like,
yeah. Rise up, my brethren, beyond your chains and make the musical. Like he's still talking in couplets, even though he's in like a stripy jersey, which he's also cut up into like a really fashionable looking sash.
Yeah. For your sock puppet idea, I did see years ago, I saw a production of Titus Andronicus, and it was puppets, and it was cut down a bit, so it wasn't like the full 4 hours. But whenever they did the blood, they did silly string, so basically, we just spray everywhere. They'd be like, ah! It was great.
Oh my God,
that was amazing,
beautiful. Well, that's, I gotta say, I borrowed from one of my own ideas, the cartoonist buddy of mine, a couple of years ago. He and I really wanted to do for the New York Fringe Festival. We wanted to do a sock puppet musical version of the film Scarface. and now, because we never got to do it, I just want to do a sock puppet version of every movie I've ever loved. Actually, it's funny. If you guys go, if you look on YouTube, me and a bunch of my old cronies from Celebrity Deathmatch put together a couple of Muppet green screen movies that we did. It's called the Cult Comedy Picture Show, and basically it's Muppets in front of green screens. But the whole premise is, what if famous directors directed movies they never directed? Like we have Woody Allen's The Dark Knight Schleps. We have Martin Scorsese's Star Wars. Spike Lee's He Got Jaws. What are some of the other ones? Oh yeah, and Werner Herzog's Das Spider-Man, who was amazing and stuff. And they're all on YouTube, man. You can check them out. We could not get someone to purchase it to go to series, but we made 4 episodes and released it into the wild of YouTube in 2012. You might get a try.
Oh my God, I'm definitely checking that out after this. Let me throw out mine. So I have some structural things that are just sort of like table stakes just to like clean up this movie, which is I love all the smash cuts between scenes, inside scenes. A lot of the rapid cuts are disorienting.
The editing is amazing.
Well, there's these moments where there'll be dialogue bits going on and no one could get a full sentence out before you've already cut to a reaction shot. And it really throws off the rhythm of some of the lines. And I wouldn't mind a little bit of just an editorial pass to like have a couple shots be a little bit longer. I'm not saying remove it for all the spots, like the beat poetry bit, like where it's like showing off LA. Fucking great. I love those bits. The smash cuts between sequences are amazing. Like when the taxi driver flips it and it goes to a record being pressed, when it's, the scream before the gun and it cuts to the singing. There's a bunch of shots like that, that are fucking amazing. But like I said, some of the actual dialogue, I just like, it's too frenetic. Like it's hard to really track the scene, and it wouldn't be bad just to like kind of slow those bits down. And then most of this is the stuff with the Porter Hall character and that whole subplot, but like a little bit more explanation of like the passage of time, because like the first time when they first arrive at Z-Man's party and it's jumping around from everyone, those are great. Cause that's like, here's one line of this conversation and then pairs are moved around and so forth. And you're just getting all these like weird snippets of conversations from
and the fact that you have the strawberry alarm clock in the background underneath these snippets is
it's
amazing.
Awesome. But then there's like, it doesn't really ever stop that point. And I feel like there needs to be some spots where we allow for better understanding of the passage of time, because there are some locations where it's been a few weeks, or like, oh, you've been dating for a while. And I feel like a couple more lines like that. And then, fuck it, to counterbalance the fact that it's a little less crazy, do the X-rated cut, like throw in all the tits, like go for it, because you know what, like they got the X-rated anyway, they might as well
at this point. Yeah,
fuck it.
Why not?
That's like the table stakes of it all. I feel like you can make it more coherent and also more titillating. And this would all be good for why people would watch this movie more. Then the finale. The finale is the part that's like, what the fuck's going on here? And so I see it going one of two ways. One, we keep Z-Man as the ultimate villain, in which case Z-Man needs to be toxic more earlier in the movie. Like there's the implication of it. Like it's Sam, what you were talking about, like there's spots where Z-Man seems possessive of them. And like, there's shots of them like in the recording studio, like where that's kind of going on. And Z-Man actually just like kind of comes off as being like very pro, even though Harris like looks at him suspiciously. And I feel like have some moments where like Z-Man really feels like he's pushing Harris out, like where he's like really trying to muscle in and like control the band a bit more. And like in that scenario, you can start to justify Z-Man flipping out at the end if it feels like he's not getting his way ultimately. Like if he seems to be in complete control and it keeps on kind of slipping, that's one way to do it. And you set up at least that Z-Man is not just a cool guy who has drugs and like gives people jobs like up until the end of the movie. So you at least have like some reason to be like, oh, I can see that. I guess I see him being kind of like a control freak and like all that. Or fuck Harris. And that the miracle of Harris being able to walk is actually that he learned how, like he actually was able to walk, and he's behind them all dying. And either he slips a shitload of extra drugs and causes Z-Man to go crazy, or Harris is actually like the one secretly murdering everyone. And like, because you can even keep the opening sequence and have it be a misdirect, because Harris looks enough like Z-Man from the long shot that we get in the opening credits of like a person in a King Arthur type outfit running around with a sword. Like you could mistake it if like, and have it be a bait and switch. So you think Z-Man's gone crazy, and it actually is Harris. What? You can walk? Yeah. A very slim percentage of people spontaneously regain the use of their legs. And
also, I can walk because I'm a werewolf.
Well, but like,
and then he turns into a werewolf and murders him.
Or maybe you cut the whole scene where he jumps altogether, but you have him fake something else, like from a smaller place, and he fakes an injury, and then he turns out to go and kill everyone. But
regardless, have Harris be this toxic fanboy, like so mad that he's been ousted from the group of his own, like failure to act. Like he is not a good band manager. He doesn't do anything for the band, and he feels so jealous and possessive, a thing that we establish in the movie. Like he has multiple scenes of him being toxic outside of anything to do with Ashley St. Ives. Like that weird B plot right there. Side note, Ashley St. Ives is played by the director's wife. Just throwing that one out there. Also, the only character whose boobs we don't see, despite being the porn star that they talk about all the carnality. Like,
wow,
she's always in a bikini.
I did not realize that.
And I'm assuming that there's no footage like that. So I'm not like, but my point is just that like Harris is a shitbag. Harris like is super toxic to them the whole time. He tries to dissuade them from going to LA. He seems like pissed off the entire time they're singing on the ride to LA. And I don't know how far they're driving. So it could be a lot. I get that. Like, he may not have really enjoyed them singing nonstop the whole road trip.
In his face.
His face does not look thrilled.
With no air conditioning, driving down Route 66. Yeah.
But
you're starting to make me sympathize.
Have him just be pissed off about this whole situation. Have his manhood be threatened. Have him be like, well, like, you know, I mean, I don't know if I would want to keep the abortion subplot, but like, it is kind of the Valley of the Dolls. So like, it's probably going to be there somewhere. So you might as well like say like, she fucking killed my baby and I'm a toxic man and I'm good, you know, like have him, but like paint him as the villain, like in that scenario.
I mean, also you can just like totally have him try to, and I'm sorry to piggyback
by all means, come on.
You can totally have him like actually kind of maybe even once try to kind of weasel his way to ingratiate himself to Z-Man, because he knows that Z-Man is just like, and everybody else is kind of playing these like, you know, like psychological sexual games, and he thinks like maybe he could get in it and have Z-Man.
Oh yeah, he actually tries to talk to him. He tries to like entice Z-Man with a lame couplet.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it just ends up being a dad joke, and like Z-Man's like, no.
Yeah,
and
that's all he says. No.
No, and just walks away, just like, you know, because like I mean honestly, like I feel like if like Z-Man like seriously rejected you like in that tone of voice, which is his basic tone of voice, it would feel really bad. So I think like that could like feed into that, right? So he's been like kind of ousted from being the manager, and then the guy who became the manager, he couldn't even ingratiate himself to become like that guy's assistant, or even like screwed by that guy. And then the porn lady told him to find a boy, but he can't find a boy because even Z-Man doesn't want him. And
that's great. Yeah, he gives him like a really bad dig at that. Like, I wouldn't fuck you with B. Arthur's dick and Estelle Getty Cushman. Like, he just like finally Harris is like,
and that's better set up by the text. Like him having like the flip out at the party where he attacks Lance. Like these all support it better. Like when I saw him up in the rafters, I thought he was going to like cut a light and like maybe drop it on one of the girls. So maybe like you set it up like he's about to.
That's certainly the funnier thing.
Well, you set it up like he's about to, and then they start playing the song and he like pulls back, and then you have another like fight between him and one of the characters, and that pushes him like fully over the edge, you know, and like we actually get to this point. Cause like, again, he's a really toxic fuckboy the whole movie already. So it's either we make Z-Man more toxic to support the fact that we had this whole like weird twist at the end of Z-Man having a homicidal rage, or we have the character who's already established as being toxic and actually likely to do something, which Porter Hall I don't feel would.
But going with that idea, Cakes, what if Harris does turn out to be the villain and does the killing spree thing, but maybe it's Z-Man who redeems himself by saving them from Harris?
Yeah. Like, again, I like Z-Man. I think Z-Man having a heroic turn here is fine.
I think everyone here is just like, yeah, Z-Man is fine. Like, we should go rework this entire movie.
Z-Man murders multiple people and, like, kind of molests someone, and we're still all more on Z-Man's team than Harris's.
Yeah.
In the movie we got. On the rewrites.
And I want to stress again, this is because in the first half of the film, right up until the point that he has his private party, he's a pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
Like, he honestly, like, he even shows respect to Harris after he's a moron and jumps from the rafter to selfishly kill himself on national TV and kill people's joy.
Yeah.
God. Because, like, honestly, like, your friends are there performing, and you're like, I don't care. I'm going to make this about me. And, like, Harris, I think, partially seeing the, like, bad PR that it is, because he is a PR genius, is, like, but also because he's like, that's not cool to show a possibly dead body on screen. He's like, cut. And like the late night guy's like, no, keep it on, keep it focused on that, which is like terrible and awful.
Yeah, that scene I felt we needed to cut to what the feed was. Like, we needed the black and white of the camera.
But Harris jumps from the scaffolding and he hits the floor. I just think it would be really funny if you just see Z-Man look into the frame. Like, you don't see what's happened to Harris when he hits the floor. You just hear the girl scream and everybody moves away. And Z-Man just looks into the frame, sees Harris's dead body, and looks to the camera and is like, Bud Dwyer did it better. He's not even original in death. We just completely move on from it.
Kelly totally moved that body. I'm sorry, Case. I know that you're in the middle of your pitch, but like, I just no one do what Kelly did. If someone falls in front of you and there's a possible back injury, do not touch that person and flip them over and cradle their head, rocking it back and forth.
Well, and Baxter does say, like, stop moving the body.
yeah. Baxter's
I
like,
love the idea. What if when Harris falls from the lighting thing into the fly, you don't even see his body. You just see like a Kool-Aid Man type outline of his body has gone straight through the floor. There's just an imprint of Harris's body shape in the floor, and you just hear him falling.
He's basically Wile E. Coyote now. Thanks.
Yeah, because basically, fuck this guy. Like, you know, I want cartoonish levels of violence to occur to this character who is just fucking terrible. So either, like I said, either we make the character who turns out to be the villain at the end actually have supporting evidence throughout the movie to allow them to be a villain, or the character who has the supporting evidence to be the villain, let them be the villain. Would be way better.
I love the idea that he falls through the floor. You just see the imprint, and then it cuts to these two 60s character actors like Jonathan Winters and Don Rickles. They're like, I wonder what he wants us to do with this vat of acid. Goes Harris.
And scene, and that's the end of the movie. And then everyone else is just like hanging out at the party, being like, "Remember Harris?" Yeah, and then they all just like light up a J in his honor, and that's it.
And nothing else happens, and Z-Man lives a happy, happy life. And so does Casey. She gets to live.
Yeah.
She went through enough. Damn it.
No shit, man. Like that was like, it makes you wonder. Like, Ebert, do you hate like women? Like, what is your deal?
Honestly, poor Casey.
But I will say, I'm so happy I saw this movie.
Oh, all right.
I do need to be very clear about that. Like, I'm probably going to buy it because I did it as a rental on Amazon. Apparently, there's a Blu-ray of this and Valley of the Dolls. Which I just got to think, like...
Well, I know what's going in my stocking this year.
Yeah, like Jacqueline Susan must be rolling in her grave at this.
Like she must be spinning like a Maytag.
I wanted a serious conversation about the dangers of immorality.
And then instead I got Z-Man and Harris.
It's a weird movie. Like, it's not a movie I would watch regularly, but it is a movie that I'm like, I'm so glad I saw this. It is so fucking weird. It's the music, like I said, there's some real fucking bops. Yeah, like that. I hadn't seen it before we started talking about it, and I was really weirded out. And a lot of my notes are, "What the fuck is this?" But I'm real glad I saw it. Sam, how about you?
Yeah, I am glad I saw it. It took me some time to process it, and it is a wild ride. And so, if anyone after hearing this, or if anyone saw what we were watching and then ran to go rent this and watch it beforehand, I hope you enjoyed our analysis that could not stand in a straight line, because I'm not even sure I know up from down after seeing this movie. But it was wild, and I think that you do see the influence on other movies that came after it. Like, you can see that. You can see, kind of the things. And it's also like a time capsule. Like, this movie is like really fucking oddly right on the mark of late 60s, early 70s. Like, it is, even with the clunky writing and the awkward dialogue, it still speaks to that time. And I will say that the costumes are great and the music is fucking phenomenal, and the music will get you through even when the music doesn't make sense, when it's comically misplaced.
Right.
Like it is like a comic theme that you would hear in Scooby-Doo, and there are people being shot. Like literally.
Oh,
that
the beheading happens,
So,
and then they play the MGM theme, or no, the 20th Century Fox theme.
yeah, it's so batshit bananas, and I do think that it is an experience. I would go into it knowing, especially now that you've listened to it, that there are things that, like from a modern perspective, are going to make you go, "Oh God, no." But I think, like for the most part, it's such a wild ride that you kind of get through it all because you might just be in shock for the rest of the actual things that are happening. So like, it's only afterwards when you're kind of going through it and you're like, yeah, this movie, there's so many boobs, but it's really preachy against women. Like, like, like the first half feels like it's okay. And it's like, yeah, you guys, free love, it's cool. And then by the end, they're like, and that is why they died.
Hi, kids. I'm Dwight Eisenhower.
This is the problem with drugs, sex, and rock and roll.
When you leave the theater, there will be military men here to shave all that long hair off.
Yeah, I actually thought I was like so fooled because like at the end of the movie, there's like, like the last scene, and there's like an old, there's like an older judge, and it's clearly a judge, and he's sitting there, he's like, wow, this is the first time that three people are getting married in my court. And I thought he was going to talk about murder because 3 people kind of died, like that were murdered by Z-Man. But no, that wasn't it. And I was just like, no closure. And they never like say sad things about Casey. It's just Harris and fucking Kelly walking through a field. Like, where's the justice for Casey? You know what? That's the biggest tragedy. I know we talked a lot about Z-Man, but like out of all of the characters in this film, she was the least asshole out of everyone, and she did not deserve to die. Her and Aunt Susan, although Aunt Susan did live, but like she really did not have it come in, and I'm still sad for her. As far as I know, there was no funeral for her.
Just coyotes.
They gave her a Viking funeral. They just put her on a raft and filled it with gasoline and pushed it out into the San Fernando River. Yeah.
Just Kelly and Harris going hiking. Yeah. Oh my. Fuck them both.
So Sean, thank you for bringing this movie. Clearly it affected us at the very least.
It gave us feelings. If nothing else, we have feelings.
Well, then it was all worth the journey, I suppose.
That's the mark of art, right?
And we all love the music. Come on.
Yeah,
we love the music.
It was great. Like, again, I'm so glad I watched this movie.
I'm so glad I can introduce it to you. Listen, if there's one thing I want, if there's one Book of Mormon that I want to bring into the world, it is definitely this film. I saw it as a 19-year-old film student, and I remember so clearly because it was like the perfect storm. I watched it with like a bunch while smoking a lot of grass with like a bunch of other film students and like 2 of like my bitchiest, queeniest acting buddies who of course were like the Peanuts gallery throughout the film, which I would highly recommend this with, to watch this film with very funny, very bitchy, like if you have like a gay friend who is incredibly funny, watch this movie with him and a bunch of marijuana. You will laugh harder than you've ever laughed in your entire life.
We have many on this network. It's great.
I mean, that is definitely the way to go with this film because oh my God. I still remember like the first time I saw that. I remember having to like leave the room and have a glass of water because I was afraid that if I laughed any harder, I was going to have an aneurysm. Oh, I'm so glad you guys liked it or enjoyed it. I guess is more the word.
It was a ride.
Sean, since that time of being a 19-year-old film student, you've done a lot of stuff. Tell the listeners about you, where they can find you. I know you've got some very cool projects going on right now.
Oh yeah. I've got a couple of movies that I've written and directed on Amazon right now. One is a 9/11 drama called Greenpoint Tavern. that's sort of about Brooklyn in the months after September 11th. And then there's a comedy called Every Other Sunday that's a little more like sort of like a bunch of 40-something college friends who get together every Sunday to get drunk, play a board game, and eat dinner together. And you sort of see how their lives and their romantic lives and their career lives sort of progress from 20 to 40. And then I have a new movie coming out this fall on Amazon about COVID-19 called The Laws of Motion. And that we just locked picture on the edit like about a week ago. So I'm thinking we're going to take it over the summer and the early fall. We're going to take it on the festival run. And then it most likely is going to be coming out late September, early October. So that's I'm looking forward to that. And if you're in New York, I'm doing this off-Broadway show called The Girls Who Walked on Glass. It's written and produced by Gordon Farrell, who had this huge Broadway hit a couple of years ago called Lifespan of a Fact. It's an incredible play. It's a really good cast. It's in this really cool theater that kind of reminds me of Andy Warhol's The Factory over in Union Square. And the cool thing about this play is that you watch it kind of like you would watch a haunted house or a carnival, where the audience gets divided into groups of 25, depending on what color your ticket is. And you actually go from set piece to set piece around the theater to watch each scene in the play, which is kind of neat. It's kind of like Sleep No More or something like that. And and otherwise you can just see me yucking it up at comedy clubs from New York to Philly to Cleveland to LA to wherever wherever the laughter is needed. Yeah, was that a good plug?
No, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect.
No, it's you can check out my stuff on Geezer Lynch on Instagram, or Sean Lynch Comic at Twitter, or Sean Lynch at Facebook, or I think Sean Lynch on YouTube. They have a bunch of my puppet stuff and some of my old celebrity deathmatch stuff, and my channel on YouTube is mostly my animation stuff and my puppet stuff, and you can see why I want to do a sock puppet version of this movie.
Well, I think we can see the through line of genius sprouting out from all this. So.
There's another word for it, but that was kind of you to use that word.
Well, sock puppet beyond the Valley of the Dolls sounds amazing. So,
right? Wouldn't it be fun?
So listeners should go check you out on all of those possible modes. Particularly check out your movies on Amazon, because that will be a little bit more timeless. This episode's probably going to drop after the run on your show, so small bummer on that one. We bank a lot of these ahead. But you've got tons of stuff that is evergreen. So definitely, fans, check that out. Look him up on Amazon. Look up his social media links. Just support Sean, because Sean is a friend of the show, and it's so great to chat with you, because I miss having a regular appointment just to hang out and shoot the shit for 10 hours a night.
You forget how much fun we used to have. It's so funny, the things you take for granted. It's like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was I knew I would see you every week. So it's like I didn't realize how long it would be in between times we get to have some laughs. This is great.
But thank you for coming on the show, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, pal. This is awesome. I love your show.
Well, we've got a ton of great backlog. You can find all that over at certainpov.com, where you can also find a link to our Discord server. We're not doing this call on Discord right now, but if you want to just come and interact with us, that's a great place to do it. You can also find tons of other great shows like Fun and Games with Matt and Jeff, which is a wonderful video game analysis show. It's not a review show so much as a discussion of video game culture. And then they have the series Side Quest that is on the same channel, where people just talk about a video game that they have really passionate thoughts about. So check that out. It's a wonderful time. But then you can come back here for our next episode. Sam, what do we have on deck?
Well, next time on Another Pass, we'll be doing Highlander 2, The Quickening. But until then, if you enjoyed this, pass it on.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View's Another Pass podcast. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe and review the show on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com.
Another Pass is a Certain POV production. Our hosts are Sam Alicia and Case Aiken. The show is edited by Matt Storm. Our logo and episode art is by Case Aiken. Our intro theme is by Vin Macri, and our outro theme is by Matt Brogan.
We try to shoot for an hour, and we typically are closer to 2.
Yeah. That's good, though. That means you're having fun, man.
I feel like if Sean suggested this movie, he's really prepared to talk about anything.
to the point of annoyance, yes. I have gotten into conversations on airplanes with strangers about this movie, and I realized it's not the movie that's making them uncomfortable, is how excited this grown man is getting over this movie.
Let me tell you about this titty flick from 1970.
Oh my God, it was Russ Meyer's opus, his opus.
You can't take a thing Roger Ebert says seriously. Look at Valley of the Dolls.
Oh my God. I'll get into like the weirdness. I'll be like, the guy who played Lance Rock did a cameo in Electra Woman and Dinah Girl only 5 years later for Sid and Marty Krofft. And they're like, who is this guy and why is his life so strange that he over this movie like nonstop? Yeah, I mean, there's friends of mine that will randomly call each other. And when the other person picks up the line, we'll just burst into one of the songs from the soundtrack. So it like one of my friends he's the rare bird that is a theater producer in Los Angeles, which is literally like owning a tanning bed in Alaska. But I'll call him and he'll pick up the phone and I'll be like, come see the flower people. And he'll know exactly where to pick it up.
CPOV.
CertainPOV.com.